Okay, so we're going over the check-in app. Um, we released a version to Apple, so there is a couple updates you won't see on here until we get a live version. And then we have the second piece I'll show you is the check-in app web portal, and we're planning on releasing the beta feedback version with the updates for it, hopefully on Monday. So there's three main components to the check-in app. Obviously, I've got my iPad. So right now it's Apple only for the iPad. Eventually we'll release it for other tablets, but we just went with Apple to get it out quicker. So that's that part. And what we see most offices doing, and the betas have all kind of followed the same flow, is that they'll buy these kiosk stands, and you actually slide the iPad in there, and it's like a metal stand, so it doesn't move when you touch the screen, and then patients can't walk off with it. So Dr. Henry's office is using two of those at his front desk, and then all the patients are coming in, and every patient pretty much signs in. So if you've seen it, a lot of doctors' offices or a lot of places you go, they have what's called the sign-in sheet. And so basically patient just writes their name and that they checked in and the time that they're here. So they have a log of who was here and when they signed in. So basically we're replacing that with a digital version of it. The other things it'll do is it tells you on the landing pad when they come in here. So it's a digital sign in and sign out sheet. So we're tracking when the patients are signing in and out. We let the patients review their own demographic data. So right now they either have to do that with the welcome form on paper or with the ONET one or with the online one we're releasing, or they verbally have to go through that with the patient right then. It also does signature capture. That's the main thing that everybody really, really wants from us right now, is to be able to present a document, have the patient sign it, and then it stores so they don't have to print it, they don't have to scan it, they don't have to figure out where to store it, right? So we're taking all those steps out, and that's the big ROI for them, because they're not printing, they're not using ink, they're not using staff time, they're not using staff time to scan. So that's our main feature on that is the sign in. The patient queuing system comes in the next screen I'll show you, which is we're calling it the check-in app web portal. And basically it's a web page that when the office signs in, it's going to have four main tabs. So when the patient first checks in, they'll go to the check-in tab. So that's who all's just signed in, and they have the front desk staff that make sure they sign all their documents. They talk about payments and do that initial prep with the patient. In the typical OD offices that most of our client bases fall under, the client or the patient's then either going to go to the optical section or they're going to go to the in-office section. So in-office, for lack of a better term, is what we ended up calling it, but basically it means in-office they're going to see either the technician to do the testing or they're going to go see the doctor for the actual exam. So basically anything but optical or check-in goes to in-office. And then the last one is the checked out. So this is the list of all the patients that have been checked in and left the office. And then the last part, of course, is that we have it tied into FileMaker. So we're actually presenting that data for the patients there. So we do have one requirement. The patient has to be in FileMaker first. So if they check in and they're not an existing patient, it's not going to add them in the system. It was a little too complex to try to sort that out because they could be spelling their name different. They could be doing a million things. We don't want duplicate records. So the requirement is you have to have the patient at least created in the system with their first name, last name, and date of birth, which pretty much every office is going to enter for a real patient. All right, so I've got this patient entered as group 2, which is my favorite group. Don't tell group 1, all right? You guys are my favorite. So I've got him in. I don't have much other data here. I did schedule Mr. Group 2 for an appointment, and so you can see that appointment down here, and it's the regular status. So what the office is going to do then is they'll have to sign in the morning. So they'll come in here, and we have the landing page, which has the login, and then there's just some informational pages about what the app does. And then the last page, they can send a contact us, and it'll send an email to us with whatever their queries are. So when the office logs in, it's going to give them this first page of questions. So they can change the name of what they want to show up on the top of the app. So if they wanted this to be FIC office. And then they've got to select which location they're at. So I only have one. I'm the Hillsborough location. And then we have two modes right now. We have kiosk mode and sit-down mode. So kiosk is designed to be really quick. So the patient just puts in their name, they verify their demographic information, sign their documents, and they're out. So it's just to get that sign-in sheet and signature capture. Now the sit-down mode is the part we're implementing next, and that will have the complete welcome form, so they can take the iPad and actually go sit down in the lobby and then fill out their information on it. What we found so far from all the betas is they have no interest in using that. So when we got our initial requirements, they said, yeah, we want to have the welcome form. That'll be awesome. We put it in there and gave it to them, and they're like, oh, that takes way too long to enter. And so a lot of the older patients have trouble with the iPads, and it's hard to touch. So none of the betas are using that welcome form part right now. It's just the kiosk mode. But we'll keep working on that. That's the difference between those two. So now I'll go ahead and log in, and this sets the app into the patient check-in mode. And then up at the top right, you can click that to log out. So if they need to go back and switch to sit-down mode, you can click on that and it goes back. We kind of made it hidden because we don't want the patient to be touching that and getting into those screens. So it's a little bit hidden. But now the patient's going to log in. And I ate so much food I can't remember what I put his name and date of birth as. June 22nd, 2015. Okay. Oh, last name is 2. Okay. All right. The privacy policy is just a general one that says that the app is secure and all of that fun legalese. Nobody's going to read it, but we put it on there. So this is the page the patient lands on. And one key thing I want to point out before I start going through here, one of the crucial things with the app is going to be that appointment reason. So I'll show you the setup afterwards and how it's tied together. But if I know the appointment reasons for a new patient, they might have specific documents they want the patient to review and sign for new patient visits. So they can attach whatever documents or forms they want signed to the appointment reason. So the HIPAA reason, the HIPAA document, is going to be independent. So it's going to ask for every patient, and it'll check to see if they've signed it or not. And then the billing policy will be for every patient. And then every other document they can dream up or want in there legally that they need to have signed, they can attach it to those specific appointment reasons, and then they'll automatically show up for them. So in this case, I've done the new patient one. So my patient comes in, and I've got the edit all, and I can click on that and enter all the data on this page. Or if there's just one piece the patient needs to update, like gender, they can click on this and update it. And then let's go to the next page. Did you see that in the background? It just updated FileMaker that fast. So it's doing a direct push right in there as they update that data, and I shift my page. So home phone, on down the line. So it goes through all the demographic. We capture what their communication preference, email, preferred language, and race, ethnicity, height, weight. As we know with the meaningful use stuff, we need to capture that. And then it's going to take them to the next tab, which is going to be those policies. So in this case, I've uploaded the privacy policy. And so the patient can scroll through here and read all of this fun legalese. And then at any point, they can decide to accept or decline this document. And then I'll say next. So what that did is it takes a copy, creates the PDF with the signature embedded into it, and links it to that patient record in their FileMaker. Now I've got the auto-map because of that new patient reason that I chose. So the patient can review this, and then they see that $41 and they go, I'm not paying for that, I'm refusing. No! With a frowny face. All right, and then the third form, I don't know why. Somebody uploaded this iFinity error message just to confuse you guys. All right, so I'm going to refuse that one. And now that patient's checked in. So what it's going to do then in the background is we can see when I check that patient in, it did the timestamp for them, so I know the time they checked in in the user's check-in app. I can see the status on the scheduled appointment change to here, so they know which patients are here physically in the office. And then under the link we'll put on the right, we'll have the signed documents, and this will give them a list. So on this date, at these times, they declined, and accepted. So that's one place the office can check. And what you'll find is the front desk is usually responsible. If the patient refuses the optomap, they're usually going to have a spiel or even some brochures they hand to the patient and say, hey, the doctor really wants you to do this optomap because it starts a baseline. They can look in the back of your eye on this picture and see all kinds of diseases before they get bad. So then if the patient changes their mind, we do have in that new version I was telling you about a way to reassign it. So if the patient says, okay, that sounds good, I don't want to go blind, let me sign that document so I can do that test for the doctor. All right, and then I have down here an example of what it looks like. The way we ended up doing the signature wasn't exactly the perfect scenario, but what we're doing is appending the signature to the end of the document. So it's got the patient's name, their signature, and then the timestamp. And in the updated version, it'll actually say accepted or declined here. So it's not in this one, but that's coming as one of the release features. And then all the rest of the documents here as well. Okay, so now that the patient's checked in, they've went and sat down in the lobby, the staff is going to then pull up that URL, and the front desk is going to be responsible for going, okay, who's waiting to check in? And so they have a list of things that that person needs to do. So what they can look at here is see, did the patient review the demographics? We're not validating if they filled out every field because they don't have to. So we're just saying, did they go through and look at each of those pages? The privacy policy is the HIPAA. So if that patient needed to sign it, you would see a gray, like Ghost X first. This patient has signed it, so it turned green. If the patient refused it, you'd see a red X saying that they refused. The next one is the billing policy, which I don't have loaded in here, so it skipped it, so you don't see any type of icon. And then the third one is a tooltip, so it's saying for the Optos, they refused, and for the welcome to our practice, they refused. So this is valuable for the staff, again, if they have some documents that they'll go and talk to the patients about, then they can try to get them to sign. All right, so the front desk, once they review this, they told the patient, hey, you should really do this Optos. The patient says, I don't have $40. And they say, okay. They're going to say, all right, you're checked in. Now what this does is it shifts me from that check-in queue over to the in-office queue because they're ready to see the text. So now I'm keeping my list, and the patient that needs to be seen next will be shown, so the office knows who to have come in next. So we're showing what was their appointment time, what time did they actually check in. And then we've got their name, their date of birth. In that new version, we're actually switching the phone to a notes field, so they can add a note and say, patient only wants to see, optician Sherry, or patient doesn't have insurance card today, but we'll get it and mail it in. So they can just do inter-office type notes there. All right, so then the next thing we've got is these two icons over here. So when the patient checks in and sees the doctor, they're sitting in this in-office queue, but now they're going to dilate the patient, and it takes 10 minutes to dilate, so a lot of offices will send them out to the optical area so they can start shopping for glasses. So what they would do is say, all right, let's send them to optical. In case you're wondering, this one is for they're gone, left office. Now it's going to ask me, oh, well, why are you sending them from the office over to the other area? So this section is referred to as the walk-in reasons, and it can be they're walking between different areas in the office. It's also used when the patient doesn't have an appointment. When they first log into the app, it'll present them with this screen and say, we didn't have you on the schedule. What are you doing here? So then the office can create their own ones of these, so it's whatever they want for their reasons. So we left it pretty flexible. We'll say we're sending them out there for glasses selection. So now that's going to take that patient from the in-office queue, moves them back to the optical queue. So now I know who's waiting for help, and if I had two patients here, I'd have waiting for help and being helped, or in progress is what it actually says. So I know these three are with patients, these are the guys waiting. What's important too is that this menu go away. All right, I don't know what it's doing. But we're keeping the original appointment reason here, and then we're just appending to the right whatever the reason they've just been transferred for. So I know why they first came in, and I know why they've gone into this queue for a second time. All right, so in this case, I'm going to say, all right, we're ready to help group 2. Move group 2 into in progress. They're still in optical, but now we're working with the optician. Their dilation time's over, so the optician's going to send them back into the exam. And now they're back in that queue waiting for the doctor or tech to finish the exam. So theoretically now, if the doctor finishes the exam, does the final transfer of the RX for glasses and contacts, they can go ahead and send that patient back to optical. If the patient tells the doctor, I'm late for work, I got to run, they can go ahead and just check them out at this time. So now that leaves our last queue, which is checked out. And this is the list of all the patients that have checked out, the time they checked out. And then we can, if the patient changes their mind and says, oh, my work appointment just canceled, I have time to look at glasses, we can send them back in there. Or I guess if they fell and stabbed themselves in the eye on the way out, they can go back to the doctor. Hopefully that doesn't happen. All right, any questions on the overall workflow? Patient checks in, they go to the kiosk, put in their name. If there's an appointment, it knows what they're here for because they had an appointment scheduled. So it'll present them with their demographics and documents, and then they move through the queues after that as the office starts to help them in each department. And then this is mostly for the staff use, so the staff can see which patients are waiting. After working with Dr. Henry's office in the beta process, they are loving the optical queue because before they had to take their paper files, they would put them in a stack over by the front desk, and then the front desk would have to come over and figure out which one was next. It took a lot of time, and they often didn't get the right patient help next. So at this one, they can look right at our list and say, okay, Steve Smith, you're next on the list. Come on back. And then they know who's after that. So that's one of the primary things, is the queuing system, and then the digital sign-in sheet and the signature capture are 3 main features there. To kind of go through some of the buttons, obviously you guys know what logout is. Refresh is just a general refresh. You can see it if you watch it. I think it's like every 5 or 7 seconds right now, it's going to do a refresh call, and you'll see the little wheel spin for a second. We do have a manual one. If something seems like it's not working, I can hit it just to force a refresh. Reload reasons is just to, again, pull from FileMaker. I think it does only 1 pull a day of the appointment reasons and walk-in reasons, so if they made a change, they'd hit this one to just manually update those reasons. The help, again, it's squishing my screen because of the projector resolution, but it just shows what all those icons stand for. And then the last one is the add patient. So where the add patient comes in is if the patient, we found with Dr. Henry's office that some of his older patients, they don't even want to mess with the check-in kiosk. It just looks like it's scary to them, so they just walk right to the front desk, right past it, and say, I'm here for my visit. Well, since we're replacing that paper sign-in sheet, we need a way to get that person on the schedule and move them through the queues so the office can track where they're at and things like that. So this is where the office can go in and say, it's all right, Grandma Smith, we'll log in for you. So they would click on here, and again, this is part of the new feature that we'll get on Monday. But they add the patient, they just type in their first name, last name, date of birth. It adds them to the schedule then. So it's just a manual way for them to add people to the queuing system. In that scenario, they've got still the option of they can log in for the patient and then just hand them the part where they sign on the kiosk, or if they have an iPad back there, or they manually get a paper signature from the patient like they always have. So again, we just gave them a workaround if the patient is scared of iPads. All right, set time zone. They just have to do this once when they first start using it. Just set what time zone you're in, and then that'll make sure that it's setting those times to match what you have on your schedule. All righty.
So what is going to happen if there will be 2 patients with the same name and same date of birth?
It does a second counter validation and asks for the last digit of their 4 digits of their main phone number.
Okay.
And if it still can't match after that, it'll tell them that it can't sign them in and they got to go to front desk.
And if in case a practice is having multiple locations and they have a centralized server, and how this is going to work? Is there any facility to select the location for the patients?
It's on the sign-in, and then the patients are set up on the schedule location. So it knows they're Hillsborough because of the schedule they were on.
All right.
And then when they sign into the app, and when they sign into the URL, it's based on the login is based on the location they're at.
And the practice will be having the ability to update their privacy policy or something
Yeah.
in the app?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and shift to that part, and I'll answer your question as I go through it.
Okay.
So this is where you can see all the signed apps. Again, this is a great one. Just to give you the reasoning why we have these, even the declined,
Right.
it's legal reasons. So if the patient says, I don't want to do this test, and then they come back a month later and say, the doctor didn't do a good job and I'm going blind, I mean, that's a far-fetched example, but they have this documentation that says, hey, you did decline this, we tried to get you to do it, we have it on paper. It's just that proof of what the office offered to the patient. Also for Medicare, they want you to store all of those for their Medicare documents. So now for the setup, if you go to the scheduler, we've already got all the appointment reasons. Those don't change. We just need to link up what documents go with them. The second section is the new iClinic check-in app area, which we go to here. And I've got a couple different ways to view the appointment reasons, the walk-in reasons, and the documents. So this one is based on, I want to click a reason, and I want to see what documents are tied to it. So I click here, and now down below I see that there's an Optos, welcome to our practice, and an ABN notice. Now the options for the documents say, this is not a HIPAA form, it's not a billing policy, so we're grouping it as a generic other. Who needs to sign it? Everyone when they sign in. We got to capture the Optos. And then it's tied to that only that appointment reason, so we've got it here. And then I'm saying they just need to sign it once per calendar year. Now the other options is I could say one time only, or I could say every time they log in, they need to sign this one. I can mark it active by default, and then I can mark unactive so it won't ask that document to be signed anymore, but if they want to bring it back later, it's still saved. They can upload a new document, they can delete, and then they can add an existing document by uploading. Right now it's only doing PDFs, so they have to print it to a PDF format and then they can upload it. If they do have the reason attached, so like the HIPAA, so let's go and switch views on you. So I'm viewing this one through the appointment reasons, and I can do the same for the walk-in reasons and see what's associated with them. Or I can flip the view and say, okay, I want to click on a document and see what reasons it's tied to. So in this case, if I go to the ABN, now I know that it is tied with, oh, I got to hit the button, CEN, long, CEE. So it's just two ways of different looking at the links, from the document point of view or from the appointment type of view. Now, let's say for the HIPAA, if I would to go ahead and upload a new document, it would go ahead and ask them if they want to reset the signature capture. So basically, if technically when they upload a new version of their HIPAA, they're supposed to have every patient re-sign it, so they have the latest copy of that form on there. So this will do the same thing. If they say yes, go ahead and ask every patient again, it will. If they just made like a spelling change, they don't have to have everybody re-sign, so they can say don't re-ask them to sign it. All right. So then the last part we have is the manage walk-in appointment reasons. So this is that list I showed you. So I can create a new one, and then I would just put in what they're walking in for. Free puppy. Yay. And this is an office visit or optical. So what this category does is if I'm signing in and they're going straight to the optical department, this is an optical reason. If they're going to go see the tech or doctor, it would be an office visit reason. And now I've got that walk-in reason. So like I was saying, this is where if I change this today, we didn't have a way to easily just push this back into the middleware. So this is where I'd go click on this reload reasons, and now when a patient logs in as a walk-in, they'll have that option to choose from. The last part I don't have you to show you right now, but I'll just verbally go through it. We do have it tied in with the SQL encounter. So from the final outbound documents, they can upload just like they would any other letter or form that they have in their SQL. And they can say where the options are to say print, fax, all of those. They'll have one now that says send to the check-in app. So when they click the Send to iClinic check-in app, it'll push the patient into the app. The patient just has to log back in and then sign that document. It'll store a copy, in that case, in FMP, and it'll also push a copy up to SQL into the received e-files section. And so the scenario that they would use this for is if the doctor's doing a, what's Crystal doing over there? If the doctor's doing a procedure, so if they find something wrong with their eye and they're going to add a punctal plug, where it's a little thing that they have to do a minor surgical procedure to add these little things in your eye, they have to ask your permission to do it. They can't just go ahead and do a procedure on you because you might want to reject for religious reasons, financial reasons, whatever it is. So they'll say, okay, sir, we want to do a punctal plug. What it is a little plug, and they educate the patient. It'll help with your dry eye. It helps you to produce the oils and the lubrication you need to keep your eye healthy. Patient says, okay, we store that accepted. They say decline. Again, we store that decline signature capture on that document, because if I do end up having complications from not doing that procedure and the patient tries to bring legal action to the doctor, they can pull it up and say, no, we asked you, we educated you about the pros and cons of doing it, and you declined. So then they can go ahead and sign off on that and then have it stored with that encounter. Same problems we have with documents now. It's still using the same format in SQL, so if they sign it, there's not a way to edit it. There's the same problems we have with the documents now. It's just taking those, creating a PDF, and then loading them into the check-in application. All right, other questions?
So like this URL will be used by the front desk, by the optical, and within the office. So all of them will be using the same credentials, or?
Correct.
Same credentials.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the credentials right now, we're using the practice user. Okay. That they would log in to get you guys on the support channel. So they're using the same one right now. Okay. And there's no licensing on this, so I think the pricing we have is in tiers of how many providers they have. So like 1 to 3 providers costs X amount a month. 4 to 7 costs the next amount. 8 to 10 costs the next amount. But they can open the URL here on every computer in their office. We don't care. Okay. They can load as many iPads as they want. We don't care. To download the iPad itself, you just, like any other iTunes app, you just go to iTunes, search for iClinic, download, they've got it. It's right to that login page, and they're ready to go.
And any other way to find out like how many patients were referred to optical from this app or something?
That is a next phase piece. We are tracking some of that in the background, so I can pull some reports right now to see what the offices are doing, but I don't have an interface for them yet. Okay. But we do have a whole analytics page that'll be coming on that, and so it'll track some things like what was the longest patient visit, and they can do it per reason. So if they want to say new patients, how long is it taking, and it'll show the longest, the shortest, and what the mean average is. So then they can see it's usually taking us for a new patient with Dr. Steve an hour and a half. And so then they can start identifying and troubleshooting process issues that they have. And then it's tracking how long between each of those stages by appointment reasons, so you can see where they typically go back and forth and things like that.
And the data the practice is going to see after logging into this app, so will that be for the current date only, or will it be for the previous day as well?
So on the check-in screen, it's just doing today's date.
Today's date.
Right. So it's a daily sign-in sheet, but we'll be capturing it for the reporting in the background.
Okay.
That's the part we have to add, is
so
the
if in
actual
case they want to
snapshotting.
look anything from the previous day, then
we'll have to use that report. Right now we won't have one. And typically we were asking the betas so far that we've talked to, and they're like, we don't really need to go back and look at it. They're like, it'd be nice, and we'll use it if there's some reports, but they're like, usually we don't go back and look at our sign-in sheets. So. All right, any other questions? Looking like I said, we submitted the latest build, which just has some minor changes for some validations on patients with special characters in their name. We made you guys saw it already, the login we used to have when the patient put in their date of birth, it was the roller wheel. Right. So they had to swipe to get to the month, date, year. And we found from Dr. Henry's patients that The elderly patients and the
Yeah.
patients that don't use much technology, they just could not figure that wheel out. They're just like, it's not working. So we switched it to where it's just a simple select, and then they type in the 4 digits here. And then Monday, I believe we're going to release the new version of the web portal URL, which has the add patient, add note, and the reassigned document. And like we talked about, the reassigned document just as if they declined all the documents, and the front desk sees that, and they go, Mrs. Smith, you hit decline on all. And she's like, yeah, I just didn't want to read them. Okay. And so then they say, okay, well, HIPAA, you just signed saying we're not going to release your information to anybody we shouldn't. And then the Optomap, the doctor wants you to do because he cares. And then this form is because Medicare said we had to. And then the patient says, oh, okay, I'll sign them. So you can say reassign, select all 3, hit the button, they can log back in, and then re-sign those documents. Any other questions?
And every time they have to go through the very first screen, entering their last name, first name, yeah.
Yeah, because that's validated is that patient.
Okay. But if they directly want to jump onto that page wherein they can sign up the forms, that is not possible.
Now, right now, we're working on another version that will have kiosk, sit down, and signature capture, and that's what our MD offices are going to want in that exam room.
Okay.
Because for those guys, they just want to be able to sign real quick, and so we can use it just signature. Anybody else? Last but not least, we are still working on a way for you guys to be able to screen share if somebody calls in with a problem on their iPad. Right now, we don't have any way to see that, but Magic Man's going to come up with solutions. So we have a couple things in the testing that we'll try to see if it'll work. But Apple makes it a little bit tricky to screen share, as I found out. I had to buy that reflector program so I could do demos like this for you guys. There's nothing free really out there. Actually, there was a free one, but it was from China, and Apple pulled all of them, so they probably hacked my computer.